Ready.
Here we go. Take two. Welcome to the Mixer. I'm your host, RC, joined by my buddy here, Jeff. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Like I said earlier, we got off to a great start this week. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Awesome. Don't forget to like our podcast. It is the Mixer podcast, and we're on iTunes, Spotify, all the major pod streaming accounts, devices, hosts, whatever you want to call them. And then our social channels, it's at FCY Mixer on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that. You can get our goodness. I'm live tweeting Padre games and such. Any sports event, sports news, you'll find that on there. So let's get into it. We're episode 18. Let's start off with what we're tilting. Jeff, are you tilting anything this week?
I'm not. I was almost, but I'm not now. And I'm good. You tilting?
I'm always tilting. I'm always tilting. Yeah, I imagine it was a interesting Monday night for you entering with a 30-point lead in our home league, and then with Saquon going, and then almost getting taken down by the mega stack of Noah Fant and Drew Lock.
Yeah, it was. I had a 30-point lead with Saquon and AJ Brown, and going against Daniel Jones, Noah Fant, and Drew Lock. End up winning by 1.15 points. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not quite my collapse, which actually was full blown. Very famous against the same opponent that you played last night. I had Matthew Stafford and Prater in like a 30-point lead, or maybe even larger, comfortable lead, and got taken down by Dez and Zeke combo. I believe topped off by, Zeke throwing a touchdown pass to Dez, and then Prater missing a few field goals. So, and then Stafford turning the ball over a few times in that span too. So not quite as epic of a collapse since you were able to uphold it, but a little bit of shades of a PTSD coming back from
Yeah.
that scoreboard watching our league.
Did you have a couple of flashbacks Sunday night when you had like a 30-point lead on me and Zeke started to go off?
I wasn't. You're talking about our dynasty league.
Yeah.
Well, I had seen that you were projected to win anyway, so I kind of chalked that up as a 50-50. So I wasn't stressing it too much.
Gotcha.
In my cash league, I eked out a narrow 0.1 so I guess by 1.5 yards. I don't know how we're getting even half decimal points. I don't know how ESPN's calculating that, but anywho, barely squeaked that one out. Thanks to that late Juju touchdown, almost did me in. And there's still scoring corrections, so
right.
Fingers crossed. That's going to be a tilt till Thursday. But speaking of PTSD, I am having a little bit of PTSD. I mean, not to make light of actual PTSD, but remember my shopping cart story, my Costco shopping cart story from a little while ago?
I
Dude,
do.
now whenever I'm in a store, I am just like, I will not let my cart out of my sight.
That's smart.
People get near it, I'm like elbows out, so that's been a struggle this week. Also, kind of already mentioned.
Are you struggling with that while you're getting your perfectly ripe vegetables and stuff and produce?
No, not so much. Not so much. I keep the basket close at hand in the produce aisle because it's a product of nature and the land and should be safely guarded. So I want to make sure I have some sort of receptacle bin to place nature's bounty in.
Oh, there you go. That's smart.
Yeah. So I mean, already mentioned the tilts about the fantasy football teams, but other than that, it's been a good week. It's been a good week. The body feels good. Got a little run in yesterday.
Nice.
Football's back, so let's get into sports, shall we?
Let's go.
So the NFL is back with a vengeance. Here are some notes from the week. Not going to go through game by game or anything, just kind of going to look bigger picture. So we had new faces in new places. Brady in Tampa Bay, and then Cam in New England. I thought both these teams looked mortal compared to years past. I know watching the Patriots games with Tom Brady, they just seem so imposing. Now it's, almost it's just the it's not intense of a version of either guy, of either team.
Yeah.
See that the same way? Do you have any thoughts on Brady and Tampa Bay? And
I think
threw a couple sixes, or at least one, I know.
Yeah, so I've thought for a long time, and this is something I think Belichick's probably on the same thought process, in the sense of you'd rather get rid of a star too early than too late. I'm not saying Brady's done by any means. He could still have a great year. He didn't look terrible per se. They were without Mike Evans for the most part. He was more of a decoy than anything. I know he did catch a touchdown, but he wasn't fully healthy. They were playing a pretty good team in the Saints, but at some point he's going to fall off, right? And he's 43. This could be the start of it. This could just be a blip on the, radar or whatever, right? But it's a new team. Brady didn't look like Brady per se. That has me a little worried, right?
What about Cam in New England?
Cam is Cam, and New England's New England, right? They didn't look perfect, but they looked pretty solid, Cam, in his first game as a Patriot, set the rushing record for rushing yards by a quarterback for the Patriots. He rushed for 2 touchdowns. I think that I'm more inclined to believe in the Patriots after week 1 than I am the Buccaneers, personally. But yeah, I mean, neither team looked great, although I'm more encouraged by the Patriots than the Bucs.
Gotcha. Both these teams look like 500 teams to me. I feel like, the Pats maybe have a better chance of getting to double digits, getting 10 wins or something. But yeah, it's definitely going to have a different feel watching Tom Brady games and then Patriot games. I'm very interested to watch that as the season goes on. My initial analysis of kind of the power structure of the NFL right now is it seems like there are the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then there's everybody else. A lot of people were saying that the Cowboys were going to be this dominant team. They came out week 1 and lost. Of course, it was on the road in a stadium opening game against the Los Angeles Rams of the mega market. The Packers looked pretty good. They had a good record last year. However, I'm not sure if they're on that elite level. Is there any other team you would throw into that elite tier, or are the Chiefs and Ravens on their own? The 49ers last year obviously made the Super Bowl, and they lost to the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's 1 week, no preseason, right? So we don't, this in a lot of ways was a full preseason for everyone, but I think, I really think, like you said, it's Chiefs and Ravens at the top, and then I think there's a couple teams there. I think, I still think Dallas is going to be good. I think the Seahawks are good. In the AFC, I think it's a little harder. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm more interested in what happens next week right? Like, are the Rams able to win again? Does Philly look just as bad next week as they did this week?
Mhm.
Things like that are more interesting to me. I think, the Chiefs are going to Chief, the Ravens are going to Raven, and everyone else will fall in line, kind of thing, is what I think is going to happen.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, Charger fan here, confession, still, I may have a problem. Their offense looks terrible. I miss Philip Rivers already. I think it was time, though, to move on. He was aging. Tyrod Taylor, I watched maybe a quarter and 5 minutes of him playing before I was messaging the few remaining fans that I have contact with, telling them that I had seen enough of Tyrod. I'm ready for Herbert. I don't care how bad it is. Just no interest in where Tyrod can take the team. I feel 6-10 is probably their ceiling for the record this year. I could be wrong, but I would be very surprised if they win more than 6 games. And hopefully, we'll be able to see Herbert sooner rather than later. Those uniforms looked awesome, and they somehow won. The Bengals blew it because Fat Randy can't make field goals. So that, I mean, that I don't. You probably don't have any thoughts on the Chargers, do you?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think, it's kind of funny because it's more of a fantasy question. But, uh, you know, people were talking about how excited they were with, Clyde and the Chiefs and how Clyde got 20 something carries or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he got only one target or something in the passing game. And then Eckler does the same thing, roughly, gets like 19 carries, but then only gets one target in the passing game or whatever. And people in fantasy were like, how come one is looked at as like being encouraging and the other isn't? And I think this is kind of the heart of the Chargers issue, is that, Clyde, we knew coming into the year that he could catch the ball, right? So seeing him get all those carries was encouraging because we didn't know that's what was going to happen, right? Whereas Eckler, right, like we didn't think he was going to get all those carries, right? We thought he was going to get more of the passes.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was kind of flipped and Eckler got most of the carries but got hardly any of the passes, then it was kind of, I think that's the discouraging part with the Chargers, and that's the tough thing with Tyrod. Tyrod, although he did help LaShawn McCoy to a decent year in Buffalo one year, has never really been a huge like throat check down guy the way Rivers is.
Yeah,
And so I think Tyrod's decent, but I think ideally if you're the Chargers this year, he plays half the year and then you let Herbert play the second half of the year kind of thing, right? Once you're kind of eliminated from the playoffs, let Herbert come in and do his thing. That's my ideal look for the Chargers. Derwin's out. You're probably not making the playoffs, and if you do make the playoffs, you're probably not doing anything in the playoffs. Um, so I mean, my thought with them is get through half the season and then let Herbert take over and go from there.
I agree with you that especially in a season without the preseason, you gotta you gotta let Herbert be on the sideline for a little bit to get acclimated. Like you said, the Chargers are not going anywhere. What's the point of leaving Tyrod in there any longer than necessary? I think if it goes past 8 games and the team hasn't really improved, I would be pretty upset if they don't have Herbert out there. I mean, especially if you're losing a lot of games, you got to see what you have in Herbert because
Yeah.
if you're going to have another top draft pick, you need to know, do we need to get another guy?
If you need to pull a Cardinals or not, right? So
Right. I mean, you know, you gotta just take quarterbacks. It doesn't. You gotta find. You only gotta find one, and
right.
then you're good for a while, like Philip Rivers. And speaking of Rivers, you brought up an interesting point about how he targets the running backs more. We saw that play out with the way he targeted Naheem Hines in his game with
And
the Colts
and Jonathan Taylor. Don't
and
leave him
Jonathan
out.
Taylor. Uh, sadly, as Philip often does, lost the game in the fourth quarter in their game against the Jags. I didn't know how much impact he had on running backs on his team and their reception totals, but it's only 1 week. It seems very evident, though. It might be something ingrained into him because he had such a great pass catching back in LT when he first started. I always thought that he just happened to have guys like Danny Woodhead, Darren Sproles, then
Yeah.
Eckler. I thought I didn't know how much of his tendency to target the running backs had to do with the quality of the pass catching backs, and then how much of it had to do with Rivers as a personal tendency. And it may be, it may be more Rivers driven than it seems, because Eckler only getting one target is concerning.
Yeah.
Anthony Lynn has said that they want to get Eckler involved more in the passing game, though, so it's not like they have control of that or anything. Anywho, moving on. I don't know if you noticed this, and maybe it was just because I was watching the Red Zone
Yeah.
primarily and then just focusing on the Charger game. There didn't seem to be as many demonstrations, anthem protests or that sort of thing that I saw on the kickoff on the game on Thursday. The Texans remained in the locker room, and then they had the unity meeting at the center of the field. It seemed like most of the games I saw had that unity thing at
Yeah.
the center of the field before the game. I don't know if that's a standardized thing or if that's something that each team agrees on. But I heard about a few guys kneeling for the anthem, but
Yeah.
there just
Well,
wasn't
like,
as much. It wasn't as highlighted as I thought it was going to be, or maybe it just, I don't know, it just wasn't featured as prominently.
well, I don't know how Red Zone did it. The only game that I really got to see this week, and like live, was the Chiefs Texans, and I made the comment to my wife uh, after the national anthem played, is that the NFL figured out a way to play the national anthem without showing anything that was happening on the field,
Mm.
is because they had it filmed, right? They had the national anthem filmed. It was being sung by somebody somewhere else or whatever. So they didn't show anybody on the field.
Yeah.
Um, they showed the Texans and the Chiefs afterwards when they were
Yeah.
doing their show of unity. So I think that's part of it. I think the other part is I think a lot of players, we saw this with Baker Mayfield. He made a statement that he supports everyone and that he, uh, supports his teammates and he's there for them and he wants to help. But from what he's seen, taking a knee is causing more division than whatever, right? And I I highly doubt he's the only player that feels like that.
Mm.
Um, I think that a lot of these guys, I think we saw it with basketball, is they think that, you know, I think a lot of players are starting to get to the point that like there just more needs to be done from an outside perspective, and like taking a knee or wearing a shirt doesn't always help, or not that it doesn't always help, but it doesn't always accomplish what they want it to accomplish.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of them are just trying to get back to playing, to an extent, and doing their job. But we'll see what goes on in the coming weeks and everything.
I hear you. I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more done, that there wasn't more coverage on the field. The NFL does kind of have a convenient, I don't know if you saw it, it's a cop out, but way around the situation because of the coronavirus. So they
Right.
can't have, they have an excuse to not put the anthem singer on the field. And so they can kind of do that broadcasting maneuvering and show the national anthem recorded somewhere else. They don't have to show the field, but I feel the broadcast should be neutral to politics and in not covering what's happening on the field seems like they're brushing whatever demonstrations are happening during the anthem under the rug, and in itself seems to me a statement.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
I'm with you.
The league did have, they have an end racism ad or something. They use Kaepernick on it. It seems very, I don't know. It has LT speaking. I saw the ad. I didn't know how I really felt about it on first watch. It just seems. I thought the NFL really had an opportunity to make a statement here to kind of right the wrongs that they did regarding the anthem protests in the past, not hearing the players, and it just seems kind of, half-hearted and not and just not sincere the way that it's being covered so far. I feel like they're kind of doing the minimum, which is unfortunate. I was optimistic that there would have been more changes. However, I mean, it is a business, so I do get that aspect of it, but with what the players do, I feel like they deserve more respect. Anywho, those were just my thoughts on it. But in general, I am super happy football is back. Somebody asked me over the weekend what my favorite part of football being back week one. Was it Kyler Murray scoring that late rushing touchdown to put the dagger in the 49ers? Was it, the Chargers' new uniforms? Those are pretty dope. Was it seeing Tom Brady lose? I think the thing that I liked the most, though, was just being able to talk football with everybody, having Twitter, scrolling Twitter and just seeing all kinds of football talk, talking in our group chat, following my fantasy players. It's been a rough few months, just in general with the news cycle.
Right.
Obviously not detracting from everything that's going on. Still social unrest, the political environment, and fires here in California that, the whole West Coast really, which is just tragic and, may have long-lasting implications.
Right.
It was nice to have football and just to be able to focus on that,
it was very nice.
It's not the most important thing in the world, but it is important to kind of have that balance, I think anybody who listens to us can tell we're not going to turn a blind eye to situations and act like it's the most important thing in the world, but it is nice to have that, that happiness that doesn't really have any conditions.
Right.
The only thing that was missing, I did think about it. OBJ had a crappy week one. Somebody's gotta, if he gets picked off on a play, how do you not do is there what I mean? I feel like I need to reference Urban Dictionary for what OBJ's into. Is there a phrase? Because I know there's all kinds of sex acts that have certain names in Urban Dictionary that I may or may not be familiar with. Is there a phrase for taking one on the chest? Is that...
I believe it's Greek or something along those lines.
It's Greek?
Yeah, let me find it for you.
Wait, there's the phrase is Greek.
Yeah. So it's something along those lines.
Anyway, how do you not, if you're a corner, do a celebration where you just use the football and you just put it between your legs and then drop it you're, and then act like you're taking a picture and sending it to OBJ or something like that?
That would be funny.
If it was the NBA, somebody would do that.
Someone would have to.
How
I'm sure
much?
someone will at some point this year.
How much do you think the guy would get fined for doing that?
A
Whatever the
lot.
max fine is for celebration,
Yeah.
probably $50K.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody out there is listening or knows a corner that is going up against the Cleveland Browns this season, uh, send them our contact information, and we don't want any royalties. Maybe just tag us in something or give us a retweet, and we will start a GoFundMe to help pay your fine.
Yeah,
That is
definitely.
my commitment, my promise. I want to see that happen. I think we got our first T-shirt too, if that happens. So anybody out there, that is our intellectual property. You cannot steal that. Only the cornerback who makes the pick and does the celebration has our permission. Some other notes, takeaways from week one. DeAndre Hopkins can catch like an animal. DeAndre Swift, though, cannot. He cost the Lions a game late. The Bears won, so congrats out there to you Bears fans. Already talked about Rivers jinxing or maybe possibly being jinxed, losing in the fourth quarter, chance to come back, like not being able to cash it in, throwing a pick. And the other thing that I noticed that was kind of weird about week one is it seems like some of the broadcasters are a little lost without having the fans there, especially Bob Costas in the Saturday night game in
Sunday night
LA.
game.
Yeah, during the first half, especially, he just seemed kind of dull and
Yeah.
I don't know. Costas, he's been doing those Saturday night games for a while, and most of the sporting events he does are big. So, they might have a hard time adjusting to there being no fans. Like he had zero inflection a lot of the time, and I think
I
it's just
mean, Collinsworth might have got to him.
is that
That's who
right?
he's working with.
I,
So,
I actually like Collinsworth.
I mean, I like Collinsworth for what he's done for football overall, but I hate him as an announcer.
I think he's fine for the most part.
He's terrible. He's
Okay.
so boring. He's so like I don't know. He's like John Madden. He's like knockoff John Madden. Like he says the most obvious things, but it's like we've already had someone that does that, and it's like it's just annoying. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, Chris, I heard John say that in '94. You don't have to repeat it.
So you prefer Tony Romo, obviously. We'll
Hundred
have,
percent.
we'll have to get into more Romo. I didn't hear.
Give me Romo predicting plays any day of the week over any other announcer in any sport.
I think I missed the game that he covered, probably because I was watching the Chargers, and the Chargers broadcast definitely aren't going to get the A teams this year.
They will this week. They play the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, I guess they might get one or two, but I'm not looking forward to that game. I mean, it might be a spectacle, but the wrong kind of spectacle. OBJ might be into it. That's all I'm gonna say. So that wraps up football. Let's move on to the NBA, shall we? I'm gonna lean on you here, Jeff. So the Heat and
I'm
Celtics are in the finals in the
yeah.
East.
There's
Game
not
one
much here
is
so far.
game one is tonight.
Yeah.
Do you have any predictions for game one? I guess.
I mean, I think the Celtics win game one. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that's gonna be a long series. To be honest, I think it goes 6 or 7 games. Both teams are fairly evenly matched, and I really think that. I mean, as long as the Clippers win tonight, I think the real finals happens in the Western Conference Finals. I think whoever comes out of the West beats whoever's from the East in 5 games or so, something like that.
Do you have a prediction who wins between the Heat and the Celtics?
Um, I would say Heat, just because I think Jimmy's more of a Jim. Jimmy's like never been there, but he's been there in his mind. So like,
Mhm.
I like. I don't know. There's something about him that I just think he's gonna pull it out.
Did you hear
Right.
he's selling wine in the bubble?
Good.
He's running his own business or
Hustle.
something.
Get your hustle on, Jimmy.
And he's marking it up to pretty high.
Good.
And then he told his family they couldn't come or something because it was a business trip. It's like, my
Smart.
man.
Get him out of there. He doesn't need any distractions. He know what he's there for.
Yeah, yeah, carved out of a different stone, I suppose.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, Clippers on the verge of blowing a 3-1 lead. They play game 7 tonight against the Nuggets. Sunday, they had a double-digit lead of some sort in the second half. I was watching football, so I didn't catch it, but just scrolling
Yeah.
through Twitter, saw that they choked. So, I mean, what do you think the chances are that the Clippers close it out, or do you think they're
I
gonna
mean,
close out the collapse?
I think they'll close it out and win. I think that you know, I played basketball with some friends last night, and the Clippers were a topic that we talked about. And I think that, they're certainly good enough to win the title this year, and they're close, right? Like, I think they'll win tonight, to be completely honest. But they're a team that really only has one person that's ever done anything like on a championship type level, right? Like they have Kawhi. And then they have a bunch of guys who act like they have, right? Like, and I don't mean that in a bad, like, you got to have some kind of attitude, but like the way they play sometimes, it's like they should beat the Nuggets like 7 out of 10 games if they play, right? But they are tied 3-3, right? And it's just really what kind of energy do the Clippers play with, right? If they show up with energy, they win the game pretty easily. When they show up and they take it lackadaisically and then they're like, oh, Kawhi will save us or Paul George will save us or whatever, that's when they get into trouble. Um, you know, like I said, was talking to some friends last night. Pat Beverly, Montrezl Harrell, those guys are good basketball players. They play with a chip on their shoulder. But Montrezl Harrell walks around like he's one of the best, big men in the league, and yet he's going to play Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis is going to drop 30 and 10 on him, and Montrez isn't going to do anything about it. Like, these guys walk around like they're the champions already, and they haven't even made it to the Western Conference Finals yet. So that kind of bugs me about the Clippers more than anything. Although I do think they win, and I think going into the Lakers series, I think that series is like 50-50, right? I don't think there's a real favorite there, to be completely honest. But yeah, I don't know. I really hope the Nuggets win just because I don't like the Clippers.
I'm gonna have a hard time, maybe not so much faking interest, but having a vested interest in the NBA, other than providing content for you fine folk, the viewers. If the Clippers do not make it into the next round, be watching tonight, Game 7. Maybe you're listening; it's already done. I don't really have a strong take on what's going to unfold tonight. I think we'll know pretty early on. Like you said, it depends on how they come out. And we'll be back to be talking conference semifinals next week.
Yeah.
Also this weekend was the Tuscan Grand Prix, Formula One, little F1 talk. Don't worry, we're going to be talking baseball after this. In Mugello, hosting its first F1 race, it serves as Ferrari's test track. It was a wild race. There were 2 red flags. There was a crash on the first lap. So then they did about 9 or 8 laps under the safety car. Then there was a restart and another crash. They red flagged. They formed up on the grid, did a full start. They finally got away. They had about 30 laps of clean racing. Hamilton took the lead. Leclerc was running third. He had a great start. Was running third after the first restart, after the first red flag. He was quickly passed. Albon ended up taking third. Hamilton won. Bottas finished second. The main talking points after this race were, it seems like the race officials are deploying safety cars and such to kind of put Mercedes on the back foot and make things more entertaining, because last race, the pits were closed when Hamilton came around, and then shortly after they were opened, and Hamilton got the penalty because of that. And then something kind of similar happened this time. They held deploying the safety car until after Hamilton had gone around, and so the rest of the grid could come and pit for new tires, and he was kind of left out.
Yeah.
Because of the second red flag and
so you're saying that F1 is trying to hold Lewis Hamilton back a little bit?
Yeah, I think they are. Maybe not Lewis specifically, but Mercedes. They're trying to create more entertaining races.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't think they would do if the title were up for grabs. However, it just seems like It's a procession. It's a march for Mercedes to eventually being the champion constructor, and then Lewis winning the driver's title. So I think in their minds, they're just manipulating it for entertainment, which, may not be the best
thing to do.
Yeah, maybe not the best sporting element. I don't know what you would call that. It's not 100% fair. However, as a fan, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
There was also an interesting story about Lewis Hamilton coming out, and he wore a shirt that said "Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor" out to the grid. There was a story that the FIA, the governing body of Formula One, was investigating
Ferrari had
it.
Filed a complaint.
No. Don't start that. Don't start that mess. They would not stoop so low. That's more indicative of something maybe Red Bull would do, and Max Verstappen specifically. However, the FIA has now said that they are not investigating whether Lewis Hamilton violated any rules. They are investigating whether or not, I guess they're looking to more clearly define what is allowed versus what isn't allowed.
Right.
Which to me almost sounds like they are investigating, but they're not going to take any action on him. You know what I mean? Right. It's like we're not investigating whether or not what he did was against the rules. We are investigating whether or not we need to establish rules that what he did is right or wrong.
Right. Exactly.
What? You're doing the same thing. You're just trying to save face. So
you're doing the same thing. You're just gonna do it without fining him this time, but you're basically saying we'll fine you next time, right?
Yeah. Especially if they come to the decision that doing something like that, making some sort of statement, is against the rules. What they'll probably say is that they have to wear their coveralls once they leave the garage or something, and they'll get around it that way. You're only allowed to wear FIA approved race suits and helmets and gear and gloves and that because it's a fire hazard or something. There's fuel on the track. There's people. They'll make it safety. They'll skirt the issue, but essentially what they're doing is reacting so that they don't have, statements like that. Right. That is going to turn some fans off, unfortunately.
It is, but
clearly we are we would support Lewis making such a statement like that. However, again, from a business perspective, you kind of understand why they're trying to avoid it. However, I just wish one of these organizations would be brave enough to let these athletes kind of have free, the freedom to express themselves and what they believe. You know, in team sports, it seems like that's going to be tough. But anywho, those are just some initial thoughts on that. But and you did mention earlier when we were talking about the NFL and how what the players do may not have as large of an impact, in that more needs to be done by the league or the owners as far as in the community. However, I did see a Google tracker, a search history. I don't know how these guys pull the information, but there's some sort of data element in Google where you can check the popularity of certain searches, and within minutes of Lewis Hamilton wearing the Breonna Taylor shirt, the number of hits, the number of searches for Breonna Taylor skyrocketed. Being an athlete in Europe, Europeans may not be as familiar with the situation. So Lewis wearing that shirt definitely brought at least some more attention to the issue. Whether or not it solves even that specific case with Breonna Taylor and her family and her getting justice, it may not impact it. However, bringing awareness to what's going on in the world, I think, is something that should be recognized, and Lewis should be commended for it. So, well done, Lewis. I've never, I've always respected the guy. I'd say I'm becoming, I'm even borderline a fan at this point. So, moving on. Hopefully Jeff returns. Want to talk some Padres. What a game last night. Big series this week. Just started yesterday. Padres versus Dodgers. Trent Grisham. I just love this. I love this energy. I love this big stick energy that this team has. It's trickling into me. I just feel like I have big stick energy now because of these guys. I'm like Patrick Starr at home, Jeff. You know that GIF?
You are?
The Patrick Starr GIF where he has the little pennant flag and it says like I'm rooting for you, and he has as the finger. Dude, like I got the shirt on, I had the hat on. Usually I'm working in like a tank top or something because it's kind of hot. No hat. It's hot. I'm trying to let my flow be natural. However, this week, these games against the Dodgers, I'm wearing the shirt, I'm wearing the hat. Padres are the first thing on my mind when I wake up. Last thing on my mind when I go to sleep. Not true. My daughter is, but the Padres are a close second. So I am fired up. That game got me fired up. They're 1.5 back, 2 games left. Any chance the Padres take down the Dodgers? They got some tough games. They're playing the A's, I believe, after this series. So if the Padres, win tonight, they're going to be exiting this series a 1.5 back at most. They have some games in hand, I believe. So what do you think their chances are, Jeff? Or are you going to throw cold water on this again?
No, I'm going with the Padres all the way. I think the Padres are winning it all.
Oh, you think they're going to win the series now? You think they're the best team in baseball?
Best team in baseball. They're winning everything.
Wow. My heart is full. My heart is full. I'm excited. They got that feel. They got that swagger. Grisham, again, pimping that home run. Like, I mean, we've seen some pimp jobs by the Padres this year. Maybe none so in a bigger spot for sure than Grisham taking Kershaw yard, which a lot of Dodger fans are not happy about. It seemed like the Dodgers dugout was not happy about.
Hey,
maybe chirping them down the third base line you didn't have to do. Maybe doing the little hop on home plate when you got to home you didn't have to do. But I'm completely fine with the watching your work, your handiwork as that ball sailed out and then turning to your own dugout and saying, let's go. I'm all about that.
Yeah, I'm always have been, always will be on team. If you don't want somebody celebrating something, then don't let them do it, right? Like if you don't want them pimping a home run, don't let them hit a home run.
Yeah, this is coming from the fan base who, what's Joe Kelly? Joe Kelly, right? The relief pitcher.
Yeah.
He's throwing at the Astros. He's kind of bitter about what the Astros did, stealing signs. And that's fine. And the fan base is like, haha, yeah, that's right. Like fuck you guys. Giving the middle fingers to the Astros. And then Max Muncy, what did he do? He took Bumgarner yard, right, or something,
yeah.
And he turned to Bumgarner and said, "Oh, because I think he pimped a home run, right? Muncy pimped a home run, and then Bumgarner was shouting at Muncy, and he said, "Go get the ball out of the water," or something like that. And so these guys hypocritical,
Right.
I mean, it's what you expect. But the main thing is, I think the Padres are in the Dodgers' heads. They've been getting all the attention. Meanwhile, the Dodgers have had the best record in baseball for a while. They finally feel like it's their year. Now they got to deal with the up-and-comers in their own division.
Right.
And I think they're cracking. Muncy made 2 errors last night that basically cost them the game. Maybe not. I mean, the Padres won 7-2. However, it was the turning point.
Yeah.
Who was it? Profar scored.
Yeah.
Kind of taking home. It wasn't a steal, but Muncy could have just tagged. I can't remember who grounded towards first base, but he could have just tagged him and then kept his eye on Profar. But he hesitated, went back. Profar scored. Nobody was out. Then the very next play, a grounder to Muncy again, and he throws it into left field. So we'll see how the rest of the series plays out, but I think the Padres are winning the mental game, and I think they finally have the talent to compete.
Yeah. I'm with you.
There was a brief COVID scare over the weekend with the Padres.
With the
somebody on the Giants tested positive. I saw on Twitter somebody said that one of the players was down in TJ Thursday night or something, and he had the receipts to prove it. But, I mean, it's just some guy on Twitter. So
yeah.
I don't know if there's any truth to that. Seems like
Right.
all the other players were tested and came back clean. So the Padres had the doubleheader on Sunday. They swept both those games. They just keep rolling. 21-5 as statistician and I mean, if this guy provides you a stat or share of an article, you can take it to the bank. Buddy Danny, I trust him and his information as much as anybody. Especially for political information. If you have somebody who wants you need the facts from, hit my guy Danny up. Anywho, 21-5 since the 3-0 count home run by Tatis. So they're just on fire, man. I'm super excited. Pedro Martinez said the Dodgers don't want any part of the Padres. Do you think any team wants any part of the Padres? So, and just seeing these national media guys just talking about them as opposed to being this afterthought for so long, As San Diegans, we deserve it. We've been through some rough times. We lost our football team. The Padres have sucked. We don't have an arena. Our football stadium is like 50 years old and crumbling, maybe even more. Yeah, I guess it probably is like 60 years old.
Yeah, it's nice to finally have something decent.
Enjoy the ride. I remember thinking back in like 98 was such an awesome sports season for the Padres, and then the 94 season for the Chargers. And you never really like appreciate it in the moment. Like this is the moment. So fucking enjoy it. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some special memories coming up here soon.
Yeah.
Wish it was under better circumstances and condensed year when you can't go to any games. However, we'll fucking take it. Maybe this is year one of a dynasty.
It would be the most Padres thing ever to win the World Series and not be able to have a parade.
Hey man, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm down for a social distant parade, a Zoom parade. Why not? Like, let's go.
There you go.
Let's go. I'll take it. Speaking of let's go, I think that wraps us, Jeff. Unless you got anything else.
I mean, that's all I really got. Enjoy football while it's here. I imagine it'll be here for the full season, but you never know.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I saw LSU.
Ed Orgeron.
All their players were exposed, so that's all their college football players were exposed to coronavirus.
Yeah.
Stay safe, man. Stay safe. I hope none of these guys have any long-lasting medical effects from participating in sports. Wishing everybody, all of them, the best, and all of you listeners the best as well. So,
yeah.
No F1 this week. I believe 24-hour Le Mans this weekend. So if you want an obscure sport to watch that.
Lewis doesn't race in that, so no reason to watch. But
yeah, he will though. I bet he would. Well, maybe not. He's kind of talked down about sports car racing in the past. Anywho, let's go. You good?
Yeah, let's go to PF Chang's.
Yeah, PF Chang's. All right. See you guys.
See ya.